In the world of One Piece, one of the most talked about debates is Haki versus Devil Fruits, and one of the most popular matchups is Zoro versus Law. So today we'll basically kill two birds with one stone, and we're gonna find out who's stronger between the King of Hell and the Surgeon of Death.
Are you serious, my brother?
Alright, so the main reason this debate is seen as one-sided is because of Law's bounty that honestly shouldn't even be that high, and Zoro's bounty which honestly shouldn't be this low. But obviously bounties don't accurately indicate strength. For example, Jinbei has a higher bounty than Katakuri and Sanji, even though Jinbei would definitely get pulverized if he tried to fight them. And after Roof Piece, Zoro ends up fighting King, while Kid and Law end up fighting Big Mom. So this is seen as proof that Zoro is not on their level. However, this really doesn't make any sense because from a narrative perspective, Zoro has to fight the first commander as Luffy's right-hand man. But during Roof Piece, he was clearly depicted as one of the leaders of the new generation, and within the Supernova, Blackbeard and Luffy are obviously going to be the strongest, which leaves Zoro, Kid and Law fighting for second place. Some people give it to Kid and Law because they are captains. However, this aspect of portrayal doesn't take away from Zoro. He shares the same role as Mihawk and has no desire to lead anything. Now compare that to Kid and Law. Even though Zoro has no ambition to be a leader, he still has stronger conquerors Haki than Kid, which is actually pretty hilarious because a lot of people will argue that Law and Kid have better portrayal, yet Oda decided to make Zoro Ryuma's descendant and give him better conquerors Haki than Kid, and Rayleigh explains that conquerors Haki is directly tied to the user's personal growth. So the fact that Zoro's conquerors Haki is that much stronger than Kid should speak for itself that them being captains really doesn't mean anything. Now another reason people see this as one-sided is because people think Law and Kid are equal to Luffy, but it's obviously not true. Not really gonna break that down, it's pretty obvious. But looking at the rooftop, we can actually see that Zoro has way better feats and portrayal than both Kid and Law. So the idea that Kid and Law are in leagues above Zoro was based in nothing. You could actually argue the opposite, and it's going to be very clear by the end of this video. And while we're on the topic of portrayal, these characters are both swordsmen, and only one of them will be the strongest, so I think it's pretty obvious who that will be. The best way to analyze these characters would be with the feats they've actually shown. Starting off with their overall AP, looking at Roof Piece, Zoro's attacks were a lot more powerful than Law's. Big Mom told Kaido to dodge Zoro's flying dragon blaze, and she genuinely looked concerned for Kaido's life, not even for herself, so there's no telling what this attack would have done if it landed. This attack is very slept on, but it's honestly comparable to Luffy's Red Rock, and this is not an outrageous claim. Some people think it's impossible to compare Zoro to Luffy in any way, but judging from Big Mom and Kaido's reaction to Red Rock and Flying Dragon Blaze, you can easily argue these attacks are relative, which makes sense because Zoro's affinity is arm and Haki, the same way Sanji's observation seems to be relative to Luffy's, at least in sensory perception. Now comparing that to Law's injection shot, it's actually not even a close comparison, and of course we have the 30 broken bones Ashura, which was way more powerful than the combined attack from all the Supernova. Now moving toward the Kid and Law fight, we got Law using his good old counter shock, and Big Mom barely reacts and proceeds to backflip and slam both Kid and Law at the same time. Now if I'm being completely honest, the only time Law's AP is remotely comparable to Zoro is once he starts using his awakening, so let's go ahead and skip to chapter 1030. Law uses his awakening for the first time and uses shockwave, and this causes Big Mom to actually bleed, and it seems like she's actually taking a good amount of damage. While this is impressive, Zoro's rooftop AP is still a lot better than this. Comparing shockwave to Flying Dragon Blaze, she didn't take that much damage, so Flying Dragon Blaze would still be way more powerful because Big Mom was genuinely fearful for Kaido's safety. If it was as powerful as shockwave, there's no way Kaido or Big Mom would have reacted like this, so Flying Dragon Blaze is clearly still superior. Now moving on to chapter 1031, Big Mom uses her lifespan energy, and in chapter 1038, Law hits her with Shock Willy and actually puts Big Mom on her back, and she was using her imp. So when it comes to comparison, it's possible that this attack is pretty close to Zoro's Flying Dragon Blaze. Now moving on, we have Zoro using Advanced Conquerors Haki, and this would pretty much boost his AP and defense by a good amount, just based on Luffy's insane jump in power. We can also see this because with Advanced Conquerors Haki, Zoro was able to blitz King while he was in his fastest form and cut straight through his Magma Dragon, whereas before his shamisen, King was completely overwhelming him, which is also why Enma says Zoro needs to unleash more Haki. Now when it comes to Ashura and King of Hell Zoro, not everyone agrees on which is more powerful, but after some thought, I think it's definitely King of Hell. For starters, Zoro did not know he had Conquerors Haki on the rooftop, and he had 30 broken bones, so even if Ashura is more powerful, King of Hell should be pretty comparable, and it obviously lasts a lot longer because Ashura is usually just one attack, and as we know, Conquerors Haki cannot be trained, and it only grows stronger as you grow stronger, so Zoro's Haki against King would be just as strong as it was on the rooftop. The only difference is that Ashura uses all of Zoro's remaining power at once. But aside from Ashura, this means Zoro's attacks would now be a lot more powerful than they were on the roof. Zoro's casual AP would also be even stronger than the combined Paradise Tosca, which left Kaido in a pool of blood on his back, which is pretty similar to the reaction of Puncture Willie, which is the attack Law landed on Big Mom. And I think at best you could argue these attacks are equal, but with Conqueror's Haki, Zoro's AP would be a lot more powerful than both of these attacks. With his current Haki, Zoro would be able to scar Kaido, which is comparable to Kazuki Oden, who sits in Kaido's top 5, which funny enough is all Conquerors. So based on the portrayal around Conqueror's Haki and the fact that Zoro's AP was stronger than Law for the majority of the rooftop fight, Zoro should definitely take this round. Now looking at speed, this one is actually not as one-sided as people think. In terms of travel speed, Law is actually faster because he can teleport, but that does not mean Zoro will be unable to compete. We've seen plenty of characters counter Law's teleportation. In terms of reaction speed, Zoro was already comparable to Law even on the rooftop, as we see him saving Luffy from one of Big Mom's attacks, and Big Mom herself is really not that fast of a character, and even Marco was able to keep up with her 1v1, whereas Law is fighting 2v1 with a bunch of hacks. Law's overall combat speed would be relative to people like Marco and King. So even a rooftop Zoro would have comparable reaction speed, which makes sense because Law's awakening does not boost his speed, which means currently Zoro's reaction speed would be a lot better than Law's. Thanks to Law's teleportation, he would be able to blitz Zoro a couple times during the fight, but Zoro has already shown that he is capable of countering attacks like this, and it's important to remember Zoro's reaction speed would be better than Law's. He can definitely counter Law's attacks even if he gets blitzed. Law also can't teleport as much as some people think. He has never used his teleportation to zip around his opponents. So while Law might be able to teleport, Zoro's physical combat speed is clearly superior, which is definitely going to matter. And he was able to blitz King multiple times before and after the shamisen, and when King turned his flames off, Zoro was able to blitz him after cutting straight through a magma dragon. So this is definitely going to matter because as we've already seen, superior physical speed always trumps Law's teleportation, but he's lucky he had to fight Big Mom because as we've seen before, she's very slow. So overall combat speed definitely goes to Zoro. Now when it comes to overall defense, it's actually pretty one-sided. Law's Devil Fruit doesn't really make his body stronger in any type of way, and just like Zoro, he would have to use Haki to increase his defense. He also has his antibacterial curtain, which is kind of like a barrier, but I doubt that it'd be able to block Zoro's attacks since Kaido swatted it away with a basic swing. Now starting with the rooftop once again, both Law and Zoro never really got hit with any major attacks until Big Mom and Kaido decide to use Hakai, and Zoro tries to block it and ends up breaking 30 of his bones. Zoro was able to partially block the attack, and even if it was just for 1 second, it's extremely impressive. Also, I honestly don't believe that it was just 1 second because Zoro was able to literally say an entire sentence and everyone reacted to it, and there's no way all of this happened in just 1 second. But anyway, moving on. If we compare this to Law, he was unable to block a casual swing from Kaido even while he was using an antibacterial curtain, so even using Devil Fruit for an advantage, Zoro's Haki provides a much stronger durability. And in terms of endurance, he was able to pull off a similar feat to a prime Kazuki Oden, even while he had 30 broken bones. When it comes to King of Hell Zoro, he seems to have some endurance issues, but according to Law, his awakening also takes a lot of stamina, so they're in the same boat. So even if Law manages to hurt Zoro as much as Hakai, Zoro would still have enough attack power and speed to cut off his head, and using Arm and Haki, Zoro was durable enough to tank an explosion at point blank range. And I've said this in my past videos, but Zoro has always had some sort of extraordinary endurance, but we know that Haki is much better defensively than Law's Devil Fruit because his Devil Fruit is not even made for defense, so Zoro definitely takes this round by far, as his Haki would also be a lot stronger than Law's. In terms of how the fight would actually go down, Law's abilities can cause wide range destruction, which Zoro is going to have to watch out for, and on top of that, Law has plenty of abilities that bypass durability and destroy organs with electricity. Now with Enma draining his Haki, Zoro will literally be able to cut Law, and it will be imbued with both armament and Conqueror's Haki. And as we explained before, Zoro's attack power would be a lot more devastating than Law's, so if Law decides to stay in base form, Zoro will obviously have the advantage. I don't think Law would be able to match Zoro without his awakening. With Kroom, Zoro will be forced to take the full brunt of Law's attacks, but this would not be enough to put him down. After taking such heavy damage from Law, Enma would force Zoro to use his Conqueror's Haki, and with his attack speed, he would be more than fast enough to blitz someone like Law. Law's overall combat speed would be relative to people like Marco and King, and with Leon Shison, Zoro was able to blitz King in his face, and with his strongest move, he was able to cut straight through King's magma attack and blitz King while also cutting off his wing. So respectfully, Zoro would actually cut off one of Law's limbs with this attack because King and Queen would be more durable than Law because they are powerful dinosaur zones. Some people may disagree, but it's important to remember Big Mom's Devil Fruit is genuinely not as strong as some people seem to think. Law was able to cut her strongest ability in half with a regular sword slash, so Zoro's attacks are going to be a lot more devastating because he's actually using his advanced Conqueror's Haki, which Big Mom did not. If you don't believe me, we can compare Yamato's base form suppressed Thunder Kage to Big Mama's Mazer Cannon. At best, you can argue these attacks are equal because they both temporarily dropped ulti, but Zoro's AP would scale a lot higher than this, as he was able to temporarily drop Apu, who's shown to be relative to X Drake, who's also relative to ulti, and this is only a suppressed version of Zoro, meaning Rooftop Zoro would probably be able to drop ulti just like the Mazer Cannon. So although it might seem insane to suggest, Zoro's AP is genuinely comparable to Big Mom's as long as she is not using advanced Kankisaki. So not only would Law be too slow to counter against Zoro's attack speed, Zoro's AP is too powerful for Law to actually match, and his hacks would not be strong enough to put down Zoro, and even if they did, Zoro would still have enough power to win the fight, as we saw with Ashura. So the winner is none other than Roronoa Zoro. But what do you guys think? Drop a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.